They called us fragile. They laughed at our limitations. But when the galaxy's strongest were trapped beneath a dying planet, only one species stepped forward. Us, humans, the ones too weak to matter, until we became the only ones who could save them. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Federation never fails to amuse me. Here I stand, Chief Observer Avon Solari, watching 12 of the most physically impressive species in our known universe bicker like juveniles about the latest candidate for membership, humans. Look at these pathetic creatures. Supreme Counselor Vorax pounds his titanium-dense fist on the floating display, causing it to flicker. His crystalline exoskeleton catches the light from our 3 suns, casting rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. Their bones break from falling their own height. Their muscles tear from lifting a mere 1,000 units. They can't even survive in vacuum for more than 30 seconds. I suppress a chuckle as the other council members rumble in agreement. The Drachnid representative flexes his 18-foot frame, scales rippling with barely contained strength. They require artificial protection just to explore their own solar system, he sneers, voice like gravel in a metal grinder. My species colonized 3 systems before we invented pressure suits. Perhaps, interjects Ambassador Velari of the silicon-based Luminary, her glowing form pulsing with each word. We should consider their technological achievements. They've managed to compensate for their limitations. Compensate? Vorax laughs, a sound like thunder. Should we also invite the gas-dwelling Nebulons to join? Or perhaps the methane-breathing Vorks? Where do we draw the line? I project the latest human physiological data onto the central display. By our standard metrics, humans rank in the bottom 15% for physical capabilities among all known sentient species. Their endurance is laughable, their strength negligible, and their sensory capabilities, well, they can't even see the full electromagnetic spectrum. The chamber erupts in derisive laughter. Even the usually diplomatic quantum collective, a hive mind of energy beings, flickers in what I interpret as amusement. Tell me, Chief Observer Vorax leans forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over half the chamber. In your professional opinion, what possible contribution could these weaklings make to our Federation? I adjust my sensory appendages, a gesture equivalent to straightening one's tie. They are persistent. I'll grant them that. Their application for membership has been rejected 3 times, yet they continue to petition. They show remarkable adaptability, though their physical limitations make them unsuitable for most crucial Federation operations. Adaptability. The Drachnid representative's tail lashes in irritation, leaving a scratch in the chamber's reinforced floor. My species can survive in the vacuum of space, acid lakes, and the crushing depths of gas giants. That's adaptability. Motion to reject the human application for Federation membership. Vorax's voice booms across the chamber. On the grounds of insufficient physical capabilities and potential liability in crucial operations. Seconded, rumbles the Drachnid. I watch as the votes stream in, their outcome inevitable. 12 of the most powerful species in the galaxy, united in their dismissal of humanity. The humans' representative waits in the antechamber, about to receive their 4th rejection. Motion carried, Vorax declares with satisfaction. Let the record show that humanity's application for Federation membership has been rejected due to their species' inherent physical weaknesses. Chief Observer Avon Solari, please convey our decision. As I turn to leave the chamber, I catch a glimpse of the human physiological display still floating above. Such fragile beings, I think. So limited, so confined by their biological constraints. How they've managed to achieve spaceflight at all is beyond me. Little did I know that in less than one planetary rotation, these weaklings would prove every assumption in that chamber catastrophically wrong. The emergency alert pierced through my post-council meditation like a plasma torch through hull metal. Red warning symbols flooded my neural interface, their urgency unprecedented. A Category 1 disaster on Vega 9, the Federation's most productive heavy mineral mining operation. Report, I barked into the comm channel, my sensory appendages tingling with the incoming data stream. Chief Observer, the voice of Operations Director Narek crackled through, distorted by Vega 9's magnetic storms. The primary shaft of Mine Complex 847 has collapsed. We have 37 miners trapped, including members of the Drachnid, Luminari, and Quantum Collective teams. My inner membranes clenched. Those were 3 of our strongest species. Cause? Unknown, sir. The geological survey showed no indication of instability. The shaft just gave way. Nearly 3 kilometers of rock between us and the trapped teams. I processed this information while accessing the mine's structural data. Complex 847 was one of our deepest operations, boring into Vega 9's dense core to extract rare, heavy elements. The planet's gravity was crushing, its atmosphere corrosive, and its magnetic fields played havoc with most scanning equipment. Status of the trapped personnel. Life signs stable. But Narek paused, his voice heavy. The shaft's reinforcement fields are failing. When they go, the whole tunnel system will collapse. We estimate 4 hours before total failure. Send in the Drachnid rescue teams, I ordered. Their natural armor can withstand the pressure. Already tried, sir. The access shaft is too unstable. 3 Drachnid rescuers were nearly crushed, trying to force their way through. The Luminari. They can phase through solid matter. The magnetic fields, sir, they're too intense. 2 Luminari scouts tried to phase through and were scattered across half a kilometer of rock. We barely managed to reconstitute them. I felt my confidence wavering. The Quantum Collective can't maintain coherence in these conditions. Sir Narek's voice dropped lower. We've tried everything. The mechanoids can't fit their rescue units through the remaining gaps. The Voidborn can't teleport past all the interference. Even the Titan core's strength is useless against this much rock, with so little room to maneuver. A cold sensation spread through my neural pathways. The Federation's most physically powerful species, rendered helpless by the complexities of this disaster. Time remaining. 3 hours, 47 minutes until complete structural failure. Sir, the trapped miners have families. The Drachnid team leader down there, her clutch just hatched last cycle. I made a decision. Broadcast an emergency rescue call. All channels, all frequencies. Override the standard protocols. We need help. Any help. Sir Narek sounded shocked. But the Council, bang the Council. We have 37 Federation citizens about to die. I don't care if help comes from primitive single cells. Broadcast that call. The next 2 hours were agony. I watched as more rescue attempts failed. The Drachnids couldn't punch through. The Luminari couldn't phase through. The Quantum Collective couldn't compute a solution. The mechanoids' machines were too large for the remaining spaces. Even the mighty Titan core, who could lift mountains, couldn't find the leverage they needed in the cramped, unstable tunnels. Then a response came through on the emergency channel. My neural interface identified the source and I felt my hope crumble. This is Captain Maya, Captain Alara Quinn of the Earth Emergency Response Team. We're picking up your distress call. currently 20 minutes out from Vega 9. Humans, the weakest spacefaring species in known space, was responding to a disaster that had stumped the Federation's strongest. Chief Observer, Yalax calmed urgently. We're down to 90 minutes of structural integrity. The last Drachnid attempt caused another partial collapse. We're running out of options. So I stared at the human response floating in my visual field. The Council would have my position for this, but those miners had families waiting. Permission granted, Captain Elara Quinn. Be advised, this is a Class 10 gravity well with corrosive atmosphere and extreme magnetic interference. Your species' physical limitations may present significant challenges. Understood, Chief Observer, came the calm reply. We've already reviewed the data you broadcast. Our dropships are prepped for Vega 9's conditions. ETA, 17 minutes. Captain Elara Quinn out. I turned my attention to the live feeds from Mine Complex 847. Somewhere 3 kilometers down in Vega 9's tortured crust, 37 of the galaxy's strongest beings waited for rescue, and their only hope was a team of fragile humans who needed environmental suits just to survive in space. Yalax, I combed. Prepare landing pad 3 for human rescue craft, and pray to whatever entities you believe in. We're about to witness either a miracle or a tragedy. The magnetic storms of Vega 9 intensified, as if the planet itself was laughing at our desperation. The human rescue ships descended through Vega 9's turbulent atmosphere like leaves in a hurricane. Their hulls glowed red-hot, buffeted by winds strong enough to knock a Drachnid off its feet. I watched from the control center, expecting them to abort at any moment. Instead, they adjusted their approach vectors with precise burns, compensating for the brutal conditions with remarkable skill. Look at those tiny vessels, rumbled Senior Mining Engineer Darnock, his massive form towering beside me. They're barely bigger than our personal transport pods. 3 sleek ships touched down on landing pad 3, their hulls still smoking from atmospheric entry. The pad's reinforced structure groaned under the planet's crushing gravity. A hatch opened on the lead vessel, and out stepped what had to be the most unimpressive rescue team I'd ever seen. Their environmental suits looked flimsy compared to our standard mining gear. The team moved with careful, measured steps under Vega 9's gravity, while our Drachnid workers practically bounded across the surface. Leading them was a figure I assumed must be Captain Maya, Captain Elara Quinn, distinguished only by red stripes on her suit's shoulders. Chief Observer, she said through the calm channel, her voice steady despite the obvious strain of moving in high gravity. Earth Emergency Response Team reporting. We have 76 minutes until structural failure. Request immediate access to your technical data and any failed rescue plans. Around the landing pad, workers from various species had gathered to watch. I heard muffled laughter as the humans struggled with their equipment cases. They can barely move their own gear, a mechanoid supervisor buzzed. How do they expect to help? I transmitted the requested data while watching the humans work. Despite the mockery, they moved with practiced efficiency. Each action seemed planned, coordinated. While the aliens watched and scoffed, the rescue team was already deploying equipment I didn't recognize. Team assignments. Captain Elara Quinn's voice cut through the calm chatter. Dr. Cyrus Venn, you're on structural analysis. Lena Morse, get the microbots prepped. Aiko Ren and Juno Hale, start deploying the sonic mapping array. Theo Strix, coordinate with local engineering for power link-ups. What are those devices? I asked, watching as they assembled what looked like a network of spindly sensors around the mine entrance. Acoustic imaging system, Captain Elara Quinn replied while checking readings on a holographic display. Your scanning equipment can't penetrate the magnetic interference, but sound waves will map the cavity structure for us. Dr. Cyrus Venn, what's the preliminary data showing? A tall human in a blue-striped suit responded. Multiple instability points, Captain. The previous rescue attempts actually made things worse. The rock structure is like a house of cards now. Typical, rumbled Darnock, throwing fancy toys at the problem instead of using proper strengths. Captain Alara Quinn ignored the comment. Lena Morse, how are the bots looking? Another human, this one with yellow suit markings, spoke up while working with a case of what looked like metallic insects. Ready for deployment, Cap. Modified their programming for the gravity well and magnetic fields. They'll create a real-time structural support web as we move through the tunnels. I zoomed in on the microbots with my sensory enhancers. Each one was barely larger than a grain of sand, yet they moved with purpose, carrying thin strands of what looked like webbing. Aiko Ren, Juno Hale, status on the mapping. Sonic mesh is at 60% coverage, came the response from two humans working in perfect sync to deploy their sensor network. Getting a clear picture of all void spaces and stress points in the collapse zone. Theo Strix. Local power grid connected and stable. We're getting clean readings despite the magnetic interference. The humans had been on the ground for less than 15 minutes, and they'd already established more scanning coverage than our teams had managed in the first 2 hours of the crisis. Their equipment might look fragile, but every piece served a clear purpose. Every team member knew their role. Chief Observer, Captain Alara Quinn, turned to me, her faceplate depolarizing to reveal determined eyes. We've got a workable rescue route mapped out. Your previous teams tried to force their way through the main collapse. We're going to thread our way through the structural weak points instead. Thread your way through, Darnock scoffed. The gaps in the collapse are barely wide enough for those pathetic suits of yours. Exactly, Captain Alara Quinn nodded. We can reach places your larger teams can't. Our microbots will shore up the tunnel as we go, preventing further collapse. But we'll need your help. I tilted my sensory apparatus, intrigued. What kind of help? Your Drachnid teams have the strength we need, but they've been using it wrong. We don't need them to punch through rock. We need them to hold specific support points that my team has identified. Precise application of force, not brute strength. Looking at the holographic map they'd generated, I began to see their plan. It was elegant in its simplicity, using the very limitations of human physiology to their advantage. 58 minutes until total structural failure, the mine's AI announced. Well, Chief Observer, Captain Alara Quinn's eyes met mine through her faceplate. Are your teams ready to try something new, or should we waste more time discussing our physical limitations? I looked at the humans, standing firm despite the crushing gravity, their supposedly primitive equipment already giving us our first real chance at saving those miners. Darnock, I said, get your teams in position. Let's see what these weaklings can do. The rescue operation began like a precision dance. Captain Alara Quinn's team moved through the initial tunnel section with their microbots swarming ahead, creating an intricate web of supporting filaments that gleamed under our emergency lights. The Drachnid teams, following the humans' guidance, took positions at key structural points. Approaching first major obstacle, Dr. Cyrus Venn reported, his voice steady despite the crushing pressure. Sonic mapping shows a void space beyond this collapsed section. Lena Morse, deploy mapping swarm beta. A cloud of microbots poured through tiny fissures in the rock, their sensors building a real-time image of the space ahead. The holographic display showed a nightmare of precariously balanced rock sheets, any one of which could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. "45 minutes to structural failure," the mine AI announced emotionlessly. There, Captain Alara Quinn pointed to a particularly dense cluster of readings. "That's our way through. Eco Ren, Juno Hale, start cutting. Minimum power, 5mm increments." The two humans pulled out what looked like jewelry-sized plasma cutters. The mechanoid supervisor beside me buzzed with derision. "Those toys. Our industrial cutters couldn't breach that rock." But these weren't brute force tools. The humans worked with microscopic precision, their cuts following the natural stress lines in the rock. Each tiny incision was immediately filled by microbots, preventing even a grain of dust from falling out of place. Chief Observer Captain Alara Quinn called through the comm. "We need your Drachnid team to apply exactly 2,750 kilos of pressure at these 3 points. Not 1 kilo more or less. Can they handle that kind of precision?" The Drachnids, normally proud of their overwhelming strength, looked uncertain. This was surgery, not demolition. But under their supervisor's guidance, they moved into position. 38 minutes to structural failure. Opening appearing, Dr. Cyrus Venn announced. "Captain, it's going to be a tight squeeze." The gap they'd created would barely admit a human in their suit. For a moment I thought Captain Alara Quinn would call for it to be widened. Instead, she nodded. "Lena Morse, full swarm through the gap. Map everything. Theo Strix, set up a relay point here. Aiko Ren, Juno Hale, you're with me, Doctor. Cyrus Venn, coordinate from this side with the Drachnid teams." Before I could protest, 3 humans were squeezing through a gap that would barely admit my sensory appendage. Their microbots swarmed around them, reinforcing every centimeter of rock they passed. "First team through," Captain Alara Quinn reported, beginning acoustic scan of... She paused, getting life signs, strong ones. "Lena Morse, confirm." "Confirmed, Captain. 20 meters ahead, large cavity, picking up multiple biosignatures." The miners must have found an existing void space when the collapse started. 32 minutes to structural failure. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. The humans threaded their way through the rock, like water finding its path downhill, never forcing their way, always following the path of least resistance. Their microbots created a continuous support structure, a spider web of incredible strength that held back thousands of tons of rock. "Visual contact," Aiko Ren's voice crackled through. "I can see them about 30 meters down. They're alive." A cheer went up from the rescue teams, quickly silenced as Captain Alara Quinn's voice cut through. "Save it. We still have to get them out. Dr. Cyrus Venn, we need a wider extraction path. The miners are too big for the route we took." 25 minutes to structural failure. What happened next was a masterpiece of coordination. While Captain Alara Quinn's forward team rigged emergency power and life support to the trapped miners, Dr. Cyrus Venn orchestrated a complex ballad of Drachnid strength and human precision. The microbots mapped every stress point, every potential failure line. The human sonic cutters opened tiny pilot holes, which the Drachnids then carefully widened under exact specifications. Captain Lena Morse's voice was tense. "The support web is at 82% capacity. Adding any more load will exceed safety margins." "Understood. Chief Observer, we need your strongest lifters. We'll have one chance to move the miners through this tunnel. The web will hold the rock, but only for a few minutes. 17 minutes to structural failure." I watched in astonishment as the plan unfolded. The humans had created what they called a bucket brigade, but one that operated with mathematical precision. Each Drachnid lifter was positioned exactly where the humans' calculations indicated, applying precisely the force needed, no more, no less. "Beginning evacuation," Captain Ilara Quinn announced. "First group, move on my mark." The first 3 miners, all luminary, were passed carefully through the tunnel. Each movement was coordinated through the human team's computers, ensuring no action disrupted the precarious balance they'd created. 12 minutes to structural failure. Support web at 91% capacity. Keep it moving. Steady pace. Ikoren, watch that pressure spike in Section 3. The Quantum Collective members came next, their energy forms contained in emergency vessels. Then the Drachnid miners, their massive forms barely fitting through the widened tunnel. 7 minutes to structural failure. Support web at 97% capacity. Captain, it's starting to fail. Last group coming through now. Dr. Cyrus Venn, begin controlled collapse of rear sections. Lena Morse, redirect swarms to reinforce the exit path. 4 minutes to structural failure. The final miners emerged from the tunnel. Now only the human rescue team remained inside. The support web was visibly deteriorating, microbots falling like silver rain as their tiny power cells failed. "Captain, get out of there!" I found myself shouting into the comm. 2 minutes to structural failure. Aiko Ren, Juno Hale, move now, Captain Ilara Quinn ordered. The 2 humans scrambled through the increasingly unstable tunnel. Support web failure imminent. Captain, the whole thing's coming down. 1 minute to structural failure. Captain Ilara Quinn's voice came through calm and clear. Lena Morse, initiate Protocol Omega. Full swarm sacrifice to hold the main tunnel. Chief Observer, get everyone back now. The microbots suddenly blazed with light, pouring every last bit of their energy into their support fibers. Through the tunnel came Captain Maya, Captain Ilara Quinn, not running but moving with the same careful precision she'd shown throughout the operation. Behind her, the tunnel began to collapse. 30 seconds to structural failure. She cleared the tunnel entrance just as the first support beams gave way. The combined rescue teams watched in awe as 3 kilometers of rock collapsed in on itself, the sound like a mountain being born in reverse. Structural failure complete. All elevated stress readings normalized. In the sudden silence, I stared at the human rescue team. Their environmental suits were scraped and dented. Their equipment was mostly destroyed. The microbots, millions of them, were lost forever in the collapsed tunnel. And yet, all miners accounted for, Theo Strix reported, checking his instruments. No serious injuries. Mining complex structural integrity restored to normal parameters. Captain Ilara Quinn finally allowed herself to lean against a support pillar, the strain of the rescue visible even through her suit. Around her, the saved miners, Drachnids, Luminary, and Quantum Collective alike, stared at their unlikely saviors with new understanding. How? The mechanoid supervisor's question captured everyone's confusion. How did you succeed where our strongest failed? Captain Ilara Quinn's faceplate depolarized, showing a tired smile. Because sometimes the ability to fit through a small hole is more useful than the strength to make a big one. Sometimes precision matters more than power, and sometimes... She looked at her team, each of them exhausted but proud. Sometimes being weak just means you have to be smarter. I watched as the miners, some of the physically strongest beings in the Federation, bowed their heads in respect to these humans who had risked everything to save them. These humans, who we had dismissed as weak only hours ago, had succeeded by turning their very limitations into advantages. The galaxy, I realized, would never look at humanity quite the same way again. The aftermath of the rescue brought a strange silence to Mining Complex 847. Medical teams swarmed around the rescued miners, but my attention remained fixed on the human rescue team. They sat together near their ships, performing equipment checks and damage assessments, seemingly unaware of how they just shattered every preconception we had about their species. Senior mining engineer Darnock approached them first, his massive form casting a shadow over their rest area. Captain Alara Quinn looked up, her exhaustion evident even through her suit's faceplate. "The Drachnid miners want to perform a gratitude ceremony," Darnock announced, his voice unusually subdued. "It is our highest honor." "With respect," Captain Alara Quinn replied, checking a crack in her suit's arm joint. "We need to run post-mission diagnostics and file our incident reports. The ceremony can wait." "You don't understand," Darnock persisted. "The ceremony of living dead is sacred to us. Those miners you saved, their lives now belong to you by our laws." That got their attention. Iko Ren stopped repairing a sonic cutter, and Lena Morse looked up from his tablet, displaying the last data from their lost microbots. "No one's life belongs to us," Captain Alara Quinn said firmly. "We did our job, the same job we do for anyone, anywhere." I stepped forward, my sensory appendages still trying to process what I'd witnessed. "Your job? You lost millions of credits worth of equipment. You risked your lives in conditions that would kill most species. You did this for miners you'd never met, from a federation that rejected your membership just hours ago." The human team exchanged glances, and Juno Hale spoke up with a slight laugh. "Wait, that council meeting was today. We totally forgot about that with all this going on." "Forgot?" My neural pathway sparked with confusion. "Your species has attempted to join the Federation 4 times. How could you forget?" "We had more important things to worry about," Theo Strix said, running diagnostics on their remaining equipment. "Like figuring out how to modify our microbots to work in these magnetic fields." "That was a nice bit of coding, Lena Morse." "The software was solid," Lena Morse replied. "But Aiko Ren's idea to use the sonic mapping array, that was brilliant. Saved us hours of sensor calibration." I watched them discuss technical details, completely ignoring the growing crowd of awestruck aliens around them. The rescued Luminari had joined us, their glowing forms pulsing with renewed energy. "We've never seen anything like it," one of the Luminari miners said. "When our strongest failed, when our most advanced technology proved useless, they succeeded with tools that looked like toys to us." "Because you all think about strength the wrong way," Cyrus Venn spoke up, still analyzing data from the rescue. "You see it as a binary thing, strong or weak, capable or incapable. But strength isn't just about moving mountains. Sometimes it's about finding the right path through them." The Quantum Collective representative shimmered forward, their energy form rippling with curiosity. "Your species turned every perceived weakness into an advantage. Your small size allowed you to reach us. Your need for environmental suits meant you already had experience working in hostile conditions. Your reliance on tools showed your mastery of them." Captain Alara Quinn stood wincing slightly under the gravity. "Look, we appreciate all this, but right now we have reports to file, equipment to repair, and 3 more rescue beacons lighting up our boards from other sectors." "More rescues?" I felt my membranes flutter in surprise. "After what you've just been through." "That's what the emergency response team does," she replied simply. "There's always someone who needs help somewhere. Now, if you'll excuse us, we need to get our ships prepped for launch." As the humans began their launch preparations, I noticed something remarkable. The Drachnid miners, beings who could tear through spacecraft hull metal with their bare claws, were watching these physically weak humans with unmistakable respect. The Luminari, who could phase through solid matter, studied the remains of the human microbots with fascination. Even the Quantum Collective, with their vastly superior computational abilities, were analyzing the human team's coordination patterns. "Chief Observer," called a voice behind me. I turned to find Supreme Counselor Vorax himself, who must have arrived during the rescue. "The Council has convened an emergency session regarding humanity's Federation application." I glanced back at the human ships, now powering up their engines. "Sir, they don't even care about that right now. They're already focused on their next mission." "Precisely," Vorax rumbled, his crystalline form reflecting the ship's engine glow. "That's exactly why we need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about strength." The human ships lifted off, fighting Vega 9's brutal gravity with the same determination they'd shown throughout the rescue. As they vanished into the storm-torn sky, I realized that today's events would change more than just our view of humanity. We'd learned that true strength wasn't about moving mountains. Sometimes it was about knowing which pebble to shift to make the mountain move itself. The Grand Council chamber felt different now. The same 12 of representatives sat in their positions of power, but the atmosphere had changed. Gone was the arrogant certainty of this morning's session. In its place hung a contemplative silence. Supreme Counselor Vorax spoke first, his voice lacking in its usual thunderous quality. "The events at Mining Complex 847 have been reviewed by all Council members. Chief Observer Caxtrill, your direct experience with the human rescue team makes your input valuable. Please share your conclusions." I stepped forward, my sensory appendages still tingling from the memory of watching those tiny beings save our strongest. "Counselors, we made a fundamental error in our assessment of humanity. We measured strength by our standards alone, and in doing so, we nearly missed something extraordinary." The Drachnid representatives' scales rippled with agreement. The rescued miners have submitted their testimony. They speak of precision that rivals the Quantum Collective, adaptability that matches the Luminary, and determination that equals our own physical might. "Yet they declined our highest honors," added the Luminary ambassador. "They departed for 3 more rescue operations without accepting a single recognition or reward." Vorax raised his crystalline hand for attention. "We have received preliminary reports from those other rescue sites. The humans succeeded in all 3 missions: a radiation containment breach on Novus Prime, a spacecraft recovery in the Maelstrom Nebula, and a subsurface evacuation on Frost 12. Different environments, different challenges, same results," I noted. "They adapt, innovate, and succeed where conventional strength fails." The chamber hummed with discussion until Vorax called for order. "We face an unprecedented situation. Never has the Council reversed a membership rejection on the same day it was issued. Yet here we stand, humbled by those we dismissed as weak." "If I may," I interjected, "perhaps that is precisely why they deserve membership. They showed us that the Federation itself had a weakness. We were too strong, too certain of our superiority. The humans just proved that true strength lies not in moving mountains, but in finding better ways to solve problems." The Quantum Collective's representative flickered thoughtfully. "Their physical limitations forced them to develop alternatives. Each weakness became a catalyst for innovation. Is that not the very essence of advancement we claim to represent?" Vorax stood, his massive form casting familiar shadows across the chamber. But this time, his posture conveyed respect rather than dominance. "The vote before us is clear. Shall we extend Federation membership to humanity, acknowledging that they have shown us a new definition of strength?" The votes flowed in, creating a sight I never thought I'd see. Unanimous approval from all 12 Council members. "It is decided then," Vorax declared. "Chief Observer, please convey our invitation to the humans. Make it clear that they have earned their place among us, not despite their physical limitations, but because of how they transcended them." I accessed my neural interface to compose the message, then paused. "Sir, the Earth Emergency Response Team is still in the field. According to their latest transmission, they're preparing to attempt a rescue operation in the void storms of Sector 7. The chamber fell silent. The void storms had claimed thousands of lives over the centuries. Even the quantum collective avoided that region of space. They're going in there, with their fragile ships and limited bodies. The Drachnid representative's tail twitched with concern. "Yes," I replied, feeling a new emotion I couldn't quite name. "Because someone out there needs help, and that, I believe, is humanity's greatest strength of all. They never ask if they are strong enough. They only ask if they are needed." Vorax nodded slowly. "Send the invitation when they complete their mission. Something tells me they would not want us to interrupt their work with mere political matters." As the council session ended, I found myself looking forward to humanity's response. Not because I doubted they would accept, but because I knew they would do so with the same quiet determination they showed in everything else. The weaklings who moved mountains had become the teachers who showed us what strength truly means.